Afternoon. This is a impromptu press conference held to deal with two matters. Firstly, today the Cabinet had a special Cabinet meeting to discuss a number of things, and one of the matters discussed was a submission from myself, the Minister of Finance, with respect to the finalization of the composition of a team and the terms of reference for an investigation into an understatement of revenue for the financial year 2023 and matters related to that. Cabinet approved the composition of a team to investigate this understatement of revenue for the financial year 2023. The investigation team will be chaired by retired High Court Judge Justice David Harris and will include Mr. David C. Benjamin, a former audit director at the Auditor General's department, and a number of specialists in information technology, because at the core of this issue is a new electronic check clearing system that was introduced at the central bank in February of 2023 to replace a manual system. The terms of reference of the investigation will include the following, among other things. Firstly, what were the circumstances that led to the understatement of revenue in the public accounts for the financial year 2023, and what should be done to avoid a recurrence of same? Secondly, the efficacy of the new electronic check clearing system introduced by the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago in February of 2023. Thirdly, the efforts made by the officials at the Ministry of Finance and its various divisions to correct the understatement of revenue and to advise the Auditor General of the understatement and to provide her with an explanation, clarification, and further information on same. Additionally, what was the response of the Auditor General to the efforts of the public officials I just mentioned, and what action was taken by the Auditor General in relation to the understatement of revenue in the audit of the public accounts for the financial year 2023. Finally, what are the facts in relation to the various allegations and statements made by the Auditor General in her report on the public accounts of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year 2023, including the addendum and appendices with specific reference to the understatement of revenue in the public accounts for the financial year 2023. The team will also be empowered to investigate any other related matters and to make findings and recommendations going forward. The time frame for the investigation is 2 months, so the team will be requested to report to the Minister of Finance within 2 months. This has also been sent out by the Ministry of Finance by way of a press release, which all media should have received or will receive shortly. If I can give a profile of the chairman of the team, Justice Harris is a recently retired High Court Judge of the Supreme Court of Trinidad and Tobago. He was a High Court Judge from November of 2010 to December of 2023. Prior to that, he was a High Court Judge in the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court from 2007 to 2010, a magistrate in the Government of Trinidad and Tobago from 2001 to 2007, and he has also served as a magistrate in Dominica from 1997 to 2000, acting chief magistrate in Dominica 2000-2001, a Crown Counsel, Attorney General's Chambers, British Virgin Islands, and so on. So this is a highly experienced, very highly qualified, highly educated judicial officer, retired judge. The second member of the team is Mr. David C. Benjamin, who is a consultant in finance and accounting. He has worked in a number of enterprises, such as NIPDEC, where he was general manager from 2016 to 2018. His qualifications will include the following: a master's degree in accounting from the University of the West Indies in 1988, a Bachelor of Science with a BSc Economics with first class honors from UWI in 1977. He has won a number of academic prizes. His experience in auditing is from 1977 to 1982. He was an audit examiner in the Auditor General's department, went on to be an audit senior, assistant audit director, and left the Auditor General's department, from what I can see, in 1989 to go on to work for a project for the Airports Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. So another highly qualified, highly experienced individual with significant experience in auditing and also in terms of working at the Auditor General's department. In addition, we have specialist consultants in IT who will help us look at the new electronic clearing system at the central bank. I also want to say I've noticed that there's been a lot of commentary on the Auditor General's report for 2023, which has not yet been laid in Parliament and is not a public document. Somehow the opposition have got their hands on a copy of it. I'm not sure how they did that, but they have a copy of it. And they have been publishing extracts and misleading the population, making scandalous allegations, false allegations, ridiculous statements. For example, at the most recent Monday Night Forum, I'm told that the leader of the opposition made an absurd claim that $386 million has gone missing in the Ministry of Finance. That's absolute rubbish. What I am seeing in terms of what was posted on the screen at that Monday Night Forum is that it is being alleged that documents were not provided to support payments totaling $386 million in 2023, such as expenses in connection with international financial institutions, fiscal incentive program for farmers, and so on. The fact of the matter is that when one does not understand the language in these audit statements, you could mislead yourself and then mislead everybody else. When a statement is made that documents are not provided, it does not mean that evidence of the payments was not provided. What may not have been provided are things like cabinet minutes to support the authority for the payment. Sometimes the documents have actually been provided, and there is therefore a disagreement between the officials and the Auditor General's department. This is all quite routine and quite standard, but I want to say absolutely that every single cent that was spent by the Ministry of Finance can be accounted for. So I'll open the floor to questions now. No questions? Nobody's interested in the fact that the leader of the opposition is on a rampage together with others to try to mislead the public into believing that hundreds of millions of dollars have gone up in smoke? I'm surprised the media has no questions on that. Okay. Sure. Waiting on the question. Sure.
Okay, Minister, you hear me?
Yes, I am.
Yes, Conchanta News Day. First off, with respect to the team that's appointed to um, investigate this matter. Now, one of the things that often gets raised is whether the method of selection was the right way to select the team, and if how impartial, independent it would be, seeing it was cabinet made the selection and so on. That's the first thing. And so, how confident are you that that no questions will arise about the independence of this team to get to the facts without any hint of bias of any kind? And secondly, with respect to what you were just saying about the claims being made by the leader of the opposition and other members of the opposition regarding contents of an unlaid report, which, to the best of my knowledge, the contents can't be publicized in the manner that they're doing. How do you intend to treat with that?
Well, the opposition doesn't care about procedure and protocol, as you may know, Clint. They don't really care. So if they are breaching parliamentary procedure, that's par for the course with them. With respect to the team, remember during the parliamentary debate, I said that because of the conflicting stories from both sides, you had the officials from the central bank saying one thing in terms of providing the corrections to some of the errors made in the posting of revenue, and the officials in the Ministry of Finance saying they never received the corrections, and things like that. I didn't want to go too deep into it. But what you had was a situation where a computer program, software platform was introduced to replace a manual system of reconciling tax refunds with a computerized system where scanned images of the checks would now be used for the reconciliation as opposed to the actual physical checks, which people would look at the actual checks themselves and do the reconciliation. They would now have to look at scanned images. And the reports that we got were sometimes officers at the Board of Inland Revenue, because they are the ones who have to look at it and look at the gross tax collection, let's say for VAT or for individual income tax and so on, and then deduct the refunds to get the net tax revenue for the year. What the officers complained about is that with this new software program, they were being locked out of the system. Authorized users who would have a user ID, password, and so on, be allowed to get access to the electronic check clearing system. They were being locked out. They couldn't get back in easily. Errors were being made. There was poor communication. That's what the people at the Board of Inland Revenue were saying. Central Bank had a completely different story. No, everything was okay. All of the errors were corrected. Credit and debit notices were sent, and so on. So when you have this kind of difference of opinion from two sets of public officials, the best thing to do is to have an independent investigation. And the fact is that it is an investigation that I, as Minister of Finance, announced in the Parliament that I would hold. And therefore, what I did, I decided I wanted to have somebody beyond reproach to chair the committee or the investigation team. So I looked at all the retired judges that we have. That's what I wanted, a retired judge, somebody at the highest possible level in terms of integrity and in terms of competence and ability and so on. And we settled on Justice David Harris, who retired just a couple of months ago, very highly respected High Court judge, to be the chairman. I don't think there's any question that this retired judge would not be independent, would not determine the true facts. And then I also wanted to get someone who was not an employee of the Ministry of Finance. I could very well, there are many employees in the Ministry of Finance who have worked at the Auditor General's department and have been promoted out of that department to become permanent secretaries, deputy permanent secretaries. In fact, right now, I have one of my permanent secretaries was a senior official of the Auditor General's department. One of my deputy permanent secretaries was also a senior official of the Auditor General's department. I didn't want to use somebody like that because there would be allegations of lack of partiality and bias and so on. So what I did is we did a search for someone who had never worked in the Ministry of Finance, but preferably would have experience at a senior level in the Auditor General's department, a person, again, beyond reproach, somebody with a good reputation, highly qualified. So that's how we got the second person. This has taken a while. We had to do a very intensive search. People had issues. Some had conflict of interest. Some were not available. Some had health challenges. All these sorts of things. But we finally settled on what I consider to be two effective, qualified, experienced, and impartial people. And the IT consultants are actually from Norway. So they are in no way associated with Trinidad and Tobago. They are completely impartial consultants who will be looking at the software program itself. With respect to, the publication of a report that has not yet been laid and is not a public document, the opposition doesn't care about that. But I just want to repeat that they obviously think they're on to something. And therefore, they're going to scandalize, mislead, twist, and distort what is a normal audit process. Because in any audit process, when documents are submitted, questions are asked, their information is given, there's an exit interview where things come up and so on, and all of these matters will be dealt with. But I am completely satisfied because I know with respect to some of the items here, for example, expenses in connection with international financial institutions. We are a full member of the Andean Development Bank, which is CAF. The acronym is CAF. And we have agreed to a capital increase for that bank. And as a result, Trinidad and Tobago was required to make capital contributions to CAF in fiscal 2023. So that is what the expenses in connections with international financial institutions is. With respect to fiscal incentive programs for farmers, that's been going on for years. We have a program where we have a sum of money that resides in the Ministry of Finance and is used to finance a number of programs in the Ministry of Agriculture and agriculture-related programs, and so on. So that when you see a statement in a page like this, and again, this is a document that is not a public document, which says documents that support payments were not produced, it could very well be something as simple as either the persons in the Auditor General's department didn't see the cabinet note and the cabinet minute in the bundle of documents, or perhaps the cabinet note was not produced, but all of the other supporting documents were produced to show these are real and actual expenses. And these are things that are sorted out in an audit, not to be scandalized on TV and make people think that 386 million just disappear from the Ministry of Finance. Utter rubbish, irresponsibility on the part of the Leader of the Opposition.
Good afternoon, Minister Primary ECP News. I wanted to find out what is the relationship now with the Auditor General, and secondly, what this whole issue affect how the government is run, because the government has to collect revenue, they have to spend money via votes and things. How is that working out now?
Well, there's no issue with the relationship. Remember, I've been at pains to explain that it is not the Minister of Finance, it's not me, that submits these documents. It is the officials in the Treasury. That's what the law says. That it is the Treasury that submits the documents to the Auditor General. It is the Treasury and other officials of the various divisions of the Ministry of Finance, the PS Finance, the Deputy PS, and all these other officials that would meet with the Auditor General's officials, and they resolve these issues. It's not me. So there's no relationship issue between myself and the Auditor General. I certainly would not want to personalize this at all. With respect to the workings of the government, this does not affect the functioning of the government in any way, because this is simply an audit of expenditure that has already occurred in fiscal 2023, which ended in September of 2023. There will be another audit next year, in 2025 actually, because the deadline for submission of these documents for the 2024 fiscal year is January 2025. So this does not in any way affect the ability of the Ministry of Finance to collect revenue and to do its work. What is causing for us is some communication issues, because as I said, the opposition think they're on to something, and therefore they want to scandalize the government and also attack all the people involved, the very hard-working public servants in the Ministry of Finance, for example. That's it. Well, okay, fine.
Yes, yeah, okay. Yes, so Minister, if I could just ask again, one of the perceptions, one of the views that was expressed when this matter first came to light is how would, what kind of image would this create with respect to the private sector, potential investors, credit rating agencies, our overall national accounting policies? How does that affect the image of we would have with any of these bodies or any of these particular practices in any way?
Well, it's certainly not a very nice situation. But we've never had any issues with the international agencies. And I did go to Parliament to extend the time to resolve all of these issues. The whole point of the motions that we debated and approved in the Parliament, in the House of Representatives and the Senate, was to give everyone more time to resolve these issues, give the officials in the Ministry of Finance, the Board of Inland Revenue, the Treasury Division, and so on, to submit any documents that were referred to, for example, in the management letter, which unfortunately was sent same day as the published report. And in fact, the PS told me that she got the management letter after she got the report in the 2023 accounts. But we now have until the end of May, a whole month, to send the Auditor General any documents that it is claimed were not received. I mean, I spoke to some of the public servants just before I came here, and they said, with respect to some of these items, they know that they have the file. They have the file in front of them. And when they look in the file, they know that all the documents were there, but you never know. So that we have this month of May to resolve that, and then the Auditor General has until the end of August to address the additional information that has been provided. So it's not a nice situation to be in. And I mean, it is really reprehensible of the opposition to try to scandalize this whole thing and to create problems for the country, but we will sort it out. I mean, we are a very responsible government. We have excellent relationships with all the rating agencies and so on, and I'm pretty confident we will be able to rally through all of this confusion generated by the opposition and move on. Well, that's good news, because I'm afraid I have to run. I have to apologize. I have to go off to the airport now. So if there's one more question, I can take it, but I do have to leave now. But I can assure the media that I will be available in due course to answer more questions as we go along in the coming days and weeks. Yes, one more question, please.
Prior.
Yeah, hi. Minister, do you think that the whole situation could have been better resolved, not having to go on the route, pre-action protocol letters, etc.?
Research tells me, now this is an unprecedented situation. I've spoken to a number of former permanent secretaries. I've spoken to persons who worked in the Auditor General's department over the years. I've spoken to people who have been intimately involved in audits of the public accounts over the last many years, 30 years and so on, even going back more than 30 years. And as far as they tell me, I mean, this will all be determined. It is standard practice during an audit process that after the first set of documents is submitted, that clarification is entertained by the auditor. So it is very unusual what we found ourselves in, where there appears to be a reluctance to accept errata and additional information. It's a very unusual situation. It is not normal from my research. Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you for coming to this very hastily called press conference. Thank you. Bye.
Every day, we aspire to be better at what we do. Deliver more news more often to